Hello everyone, this is In-Game Arts with another boxing and an offline product game review. This is Clea completed collection for the PlayStation 4, but being played and tested on my PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, this physical copy here comes with 2 games on 1 disc. Now each game is treated as its own individual piece, so you get to pick and choose which one you would like to install. This is nice in case you're working with limited hard drive space or you're only interested in playing one of the 2 games on disc. Now as I said, each game is treated as its own individual piece, so each version has its own version number on disc. Clea 1 has the update version 1.01 on disc. Clea 2 has update version 1.02 on disc. At the time I get this video, Clea 1 and 2 did not have any updates, which is extremely nice to see. And as well, I was still unlocking trophies with my unregistered account for both Clea 1 and 2. Now, I do want to immediately point out, Clea Complete Collection was distributed by Limited Run Games. I don't think it's one of the produced number versions, but it is distributed, so it could be quite difficult down the road to get a physical copy, and as well, there is a Switch version if you're interested in it. Now, I didn't know anything about Clea when I first went into this game. I did notice that it was done by a smaller studio, maybe a singular individual, or just maybe a very small amount of people. So I'm going to be a little bit forgiving on certain aspects. I can just really say that both Clea 1 and 2 is just decent. They're not amazingly good games. I didn't feel that much enjoyment or immersiveness, but they're not necessarily bad games either. I didn't experience any game-breaking bugs or issues with my offline PS5, so that's really nice to see. I only had one time during Clea 1 where I was during a cutscene and characters were talking. I had to pause the game real quick, but then when I unpaused the game, I could not push X to progress the dialogue. Nothing would work. I just basically had to hit the options button and skip that cutscene, which is not that big of a deal because I actually already seen that cutscene, so that was thankfully for that. But that was the only single time there was any issues. I did try to repeat this problem again at the same moment and at different areas. It never happened again, so that could have been just a random fluke that just happened where I could not progress the story when I hit the pause button. But it could happen to you. I'm just letting you know that it never happened to me again, both on the first and second one. Now, as I said, it is done by a smaller studio. I was really surprised at how decently the voice acting there is in the game. The games are not very long. I think I beat both 1 and 2 combined around 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and 30 minutes. Max total, and that's not including like all the little random things I did off to the side, so maybe we could throw 4 hours total. The game is interesting in what it's trying to do. It was definitely trying to do a survival kind of like, I usually call them cat and mouse horror, where you're the mouse and you're trying to run from the horror monster and there's no way to be able to defeat the monster, and you basically gotta hide. So think something like Outlast, if that's something, a game you know, more familiar of that cat and mouse kind of idea, where you just hide and you try to progress, solve the puzzle, and try to hide from the monster anytime the monster came around. I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of genre. I know that's kind of like oxymoron because I adore Alien Isolation. The problem is, while Alien Isolation has some minor like defense and combat in the game, in Clea 1 there's a minor bit of combat. In Clea 2 there's not really much combat. All you're basically doing is trying to avoid the monster, create some sound sometimes to lure the monster in a different area so you can progress the story. And anytime the monster instantly gets you, it's instantly game over. So saving frequently is going to be crucial. And there are some gameplay designs I'm going to touch on a bit, but it's not the most horror aspect for me. I don't know. I know this is counter opposite to some people, where people say that when a game has any weaponry or defense capability of the monsters, any horror the element of the game is gone for them. I'm the polar opposite. If games don't have any kind of defensive aspects, the game actually is scarier for me than when you have to run and hide from the monster every single time. Sure, it adds that suspense and it adds that tension in the air when you're being chased, but it kind of just gets diffused immediately when you just instantly die, or you're just being attacked and there's nothing you can do. I don't know, it just, as a gameplay experience, it just doesn't hit as hard when you can't do anything to the monster. But I don't want to make it sound like I'm hating on the game. It's just not a genre I'm really into of cat and mouse horror. But I still like the graphics, the settings, the progression system, solving some of the puzzles and stuff like that was fun. The story-wise, I'm a little on this, because honest to God, it felt like this was a sequel. The first one is actually a sequel to another game, because they were talking about certain things and certain segments happened that it felt like I was supposed to know something, or there was some point of me overlooking something. I don't know. It just felt like there was supposed to be a game prior to this one. I don't know. It just felt odd. And this is both the first and second one of the game. And I do want to point out that my little disappointment in Clea 1 and 2 is that they don't really feel like a sequel. They just feel like more like an expansion, because Clea 2 really doesn't add anything to the game. It's just the exact same game. It's just you're playing as a different character, and they just newer puzzles and rooms and stuff like that. It's just about it. And just added little features and tweaks to the game to emphasize like sneaking at certain moments of the game. In the end, I did enjoy the games for what they were, but it didn't blow me away. As I said, they're decent, and I do appreciate and respect the fact that it's done by a smaller studio or made by an individual. Not entirely sure. It's still amazing. What they did with the game, and the way the game looks, the way the voice acting is, and sometimes the good music, and the mechanics all work. The game actually works, and that's the big key thing. That's why I get on to AAA games so much, because whether this was made by 2, 4, 5, or even 10 people, and it's a small game, it works. It doesn't have these massive updates. I don't care about that visually how minimal it is compared to other games. That's not an excuse to me. You're a AAA studio. You got hundreds and hundreds of employees. You should not be releasing games that needs gigabytes worth of updates. Anyway, I gotta get on that rant. The design aspects of the game was that the monsters stopped getting scary, because at a point I just started learning how to abuse the monsters' AI tracking and how they worked and everything. As well as that the game has these candles, and these candles, you could either use them to save, which is, kind of like an ink ribbon in Resident Evil, which is important, or you could lay a candle down to divert the monster away. The problem is, it's temporary, and when you lay that candle, when you leave the room, it's only for that room. So when you leave it, it goes away. So I don't know. That seems like a very questionable design point, because that would mean I never used them for that. I just used them for saving, because saving is more permanent and more useful to me. And just certain little aspects like that, as well as the combining mechanic and the splitting items, was very little utilized in the game. And just the other, especially the first one, the sneaking mechanic is very underutilized in the game. It's just there's certain aspects in the game you could tell that they were trying to go with something, and they're incapable of expanding on their mechanics and ideas, and I respect that, and that's why I'm a bit more forgiving on indie side, is that you can't expect them to be able to pump out a expanded 6 to 8 hour game where they can utilize their mechanics a lot better in utilization, but then I still have to get onto them about certain little aspects that could have been a little bit more perfected before release. And as well, these games are very short, so if you're going to spend buku bucks, you're going to be very frustrated the game could be beaten in 3 hours. I even played the game on a higher difficulty for myself. You have difficulties, and of course they have a chaos mode, and I played on dark mode. I never once used a sanity potion. They're red potions that are called health potions, but there's no healing in the game. There's no taking damage. There is a little bit in the second one, but for the most part, you just instantly die when you're caught. So the sanity potions just makes the game not as hard, because when you start going crazy, you will start having events happening that lures the monster to you. I never took a single drink of those potions. I just wanted to play the game harder with no potions runs. So it's very interesting. And I'm not trying to dog on the game too much. I just want to let you know what you're getting into. It's decent, and that's the best I can give it. It's got some cool animations, pretty good voice acting, somewhat interesting story. I'm not that heavily invested into it, but I like the ideas that they were trying to go with, and I'm always in support of smaller indies, and anytime their indies get a physical copy, especially with it completely on disc, I'm always happy. So like always, thank you all so much for watching. I will try to leave links down in the description if you're interested in a copy. It's worth a check out. I don't know if it's spending big buku bucks. Might want to check it out on Steam. Something small you can enjoy. So like always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next unboxing video. Bye-bye!